The honeymoon phase is officially over in Cleveland, and this time, it didn't even last through training camp. What started as cautious optimism around rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders has erupted into a full-blown quarterback crisis. And it's not just a bad look. It's a cultural earthquake. Sanders isn't just disgruntled. He's furious. And now he's going public. In a stunning turn that's sending shockwaves through the NFL, Shedeur Sanders has demanded a trade from the Cleveland Browns. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Calling out head coach Kevin Stefanski for repeatedly sidelining him despite what everyone in the building knows. He's been the best quarterback on the field. Let's not sugarcoat it. This is a meltdown in real time. Shedeur isn't throwing subtle shade on social media or leaking vague frustrations through anonymous sources. No, he went straight to Stefanski in person and issued an ultimatum: either give me a legitimate chance to compete or get me out. And when that was met with more coach speak and dodging, Sanders pushed the button. And you know what? He's not wrong. This isn't some rookie tantrum over not getting his way. This is about a player who has flat-out dominated in training camp and still can't get a whiff of a first-team rep. The numbers aren't just good. They're ridiculous. 14 completions on 15 attempts. 4 touchdowns. 0 turnovers. No one else in the Browns QB room is touching that efficiency. Yet Sanders has been sent to the scout team like a third-string project. And that might have been manageable if it hadn't come after ownership promised him a chance. After GM Andrew Berry championed him in the draft room. After public comments from the team positioned him as the future of the franchise. But now, with the season looming and the depth chart frozen, it's clear the coaching staff never bought in, and Shedeur is done waiting. Sources inside the building described the confrontation with Stefanski as blunt, heated, and overdue. Sanders laid out everything: his performance numbers, the reps he's been denied, the public promises made to him, and the lack of communication. He asked point-blank why he wasn't being given a chance to compete. Stefanski reportedly offered a vague answer about timelines and rookie development. That's when Sanders dropped the bomb. Then trade me. And just like that, the Browns are on the brink of another quarterback implosion. It's almost impressive how quickly they've managed to ruin something promising. Most teams wait until the season starts to self-destruct. Cleveland's doing it in shorts and helmets. But this isn't just a personnel issue. It's an organizational issue. You've got a coaching staff that seems locked into its own plan, regardless of performance. A front office that clearly sees Sanders as a long-term asset. And an ownership group that's already made public declarations about him being a future star. That triangle is now broken, and Shedeur is standing right in the center of the wreckage. And let's talk about Dillon Gabriel, the quarterback who's getting those first-team reps instead, because it's not like he's lighting it up. Gabriel has been average, at best, hesitant in red zone drills, late on intermediate throws, inconsistent under pressure, and yet he's still being handed reps that Shedeur has earned. That disparity is what pushed the situation from frustration to explosion. Players notice. Coaches notice. Even opposing teams have reportedly commented on Sanders' accuracy and command during joint practices. And while Shedeur has stayed silent up until now, that silence was mistaken for submission. It wasn't. It was professionalism. And now, with that patience gone, the Browns are left facing a PR nightmare and possibly the beginning of the end for this regime. Because Shedeur's trade demand isn't just about playing time. It's about principle. It's about merit-based decision-making. It's about trust. It's about accountability. He was told he'd be given a shot to compete. That was a condition he agreed to when he signed. Not a starting job. Not special treatment. Just a fair chance. And that chance never came. Instead, he was kept on the sidelines, told to wait his turn, even as he blew the doors off every practice session. And when the moment came to let his performance speak louder than pedigree, he was bumped back down the depth chart like none of it ever happened. What are we doing here? You don't tell a guy he's a future and then make him run scout team for 2 weeks while someone else throws picks with the starters. You don't praise a rookie's composure in the press and then deny him the platform to show it in real action. This isn't about entitlement. This is about standards. And Sanders' willingness to go public isn't just bold, it's revolutionary. For years, rookies, especially quarterbacks, have been expected to wait in line, regardless of output. But Shedeur is flipping the script. He's using the one thing teams can't spin, production. He's saying, look at the tape. Look at the stats. Look at my body of work. If that's not enough, then give me somewhere that will respect it. And that's why this story is bigger than just the Browns. This could become a flashpoint moment for player empowerment in the NFL. We've seen it in the NBA, young players calling out coaches, forcing trades, demanding fair treatment based on performance, not reputation. The NFL has lagged behind in that department. But Shedeur Sanders, with one very public confrontation, may have just changed the temperature. Because here's the reality. If he gets traded and lands somewhere that does value him, he could be starting before week 6. That would send a message to every young quarterback in the league. If you ball out, you don't have to wait your turn. Not anymore. And it would send an even louder message to front offices. If your coaching staff refuses to acknowledge performance, players will start controlling the narrative themselves. That's what Shedeur just did. He took control. And the Browns? They're caught flat-footed once again. They're scrambling now. Sources say the front office is trying to smooth things over. But it might be too late. This isn't just a locker room scuffle or a private disagreement. This is public. This is pointed. This is intentional. Sanders wanted the world to know what was happening, and now the entire NFL is watching. Other teams? They're circling. Fast. Because what team would want a 22-year-old quarterback who just lit up camp, carries himself like a vet, and isn't afraid to bet on himself? The Saints are probably already prepping a trade package. The Raiders? Maybe. The Falcons? Wouldn't be shocking. Wherever he lands, you could be sure of one thing. He's going to start. And he's going to make Cleveland watch. The Browns, meanwhile, are stuck holding the bag. A fractured locker room. A divided staff. An ownership group getting torched on talk shows. And a head coach who now has to explain why the guy he kept ignoring just detonated the organization's entire narrative. And good luck putting that toothpaste back in the tube. This isn't just a bump in the road. This is a detour. And whether Stefanski realizes it or not, this moment might define his future, not just Shedeur's. Because if Sanders leaves and thrives, Stefanski wears that failure forever. But even worse, if Sanders stays and the tension remains unresolved, it's a ticking time bomb. You can't keep a guy with that kind of locker room respect, that kind of poise, and that kind of production buried on the scout team. Not without consequences. Not without losing your team. The Browns have 2 choices now. Option 1, own the mistake. Acknowledge the misstep. Invite Sanders back into the fold with real reps and a real shot. That means Stefanski swallowing his pride. It means shifting the power structure slightly. But it could save the season. Option 2, trade him. Let him go. Watch him walk into another team's facility. Take over their offense. And become the next quarterback Cleveland lets slip away. Add him to the never-ending list. Either way, this story is already out of their control. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't waiting anymore. He's not asking. He's telling. Trade me now. And the gravity of that demand, trade me now, can't be overstated. This isn't just Shedeur Sanders speaking for himself. It's symbolic. It's an indictment. It's the boiling point of a toxic culture that's been simmering under the surface in Cleveland for years. And the fact that it's coming from the one player who's been doing everything right, quietly, efficiently, professionally, only makes a message sting more. Because what does it say about a team when the most productive guy on the roster has to beg for a chance? What does it say when the path to playing time isn't paved with performance, but with politics? And what does it say when the youngest voice in the room becomes the most fearless one? Let's rewind a bit and look at where this all started. When Shedeur Sanders was drafted, the vibe inside the organization was cautious optimism. The pick wasn't unanimous. Some scouts loved his poise and his accuracy. Others thought the team was leaning too hard into the brand of being associated with Deion's son. But general manager Andrew Berry stood firm. He believed Sanders was legit, not just a marketable face, but a quarterback with tangible, translatable NFL skills. So they brought him in, told him there would be a competition, assured him on more than one occasion that this wasn't just a courtesy pick, that if he worked, he'd be rewarded. And to Sanders' credit, he bought in. He didn't show up cocky, didn't walk around like a celebrity rookie. He earned every nod of respect in that locker room. From the equipment staff to the tight ends, guys started noticing. He doesn't act like a rookie. Dude's his playbook all day. He's sharp, real sharp. Then came the reps. And it didn't take long before eyebrows started raising. It wasn't just that Sanders was making the throws. It was how. Anticipation throws on timing routes. Blitz pickups he diagnosed before the snap. Leading receivers into space instead of forcing contested catches. And all the while, 0 turnovers. Still, the coaches played it cool. He's doing well, they said. We like what we see. But they kept giving the first-team reps to Dillon Gabriel, despite errant throws, despite underwhelming red zone performance, despite everything that screamed, this guy is not winning the room. And that's when the resentment started to bubble up. It wasn't just Sanders getting frustrated. It was the locker room. Teammates could see the disconnect between what they were watching at practice and what the coaches were choosing to reinforce. If Shedeur's balling and still not getting a shot, what does that mean for the rest of us? That's how you lose a team. Not on Sunday, but on Wednesday afternoon in a walkthrough when effort stops meaning advancement. And through all of this, Shedeur stayed quiet. For weeks, he kept showing up, kept delivering, kept his head down. But he was also taking notes. And by the time he walked into Kevin Stefanski's office, the decision was already made. He didn't go in looking for validation. He didn't ask for reassurance. He gave a clear, direct message. You made a promise. You broke it. So trade me. You have to understand the emotional calculus it takes for a rookie to make that move. For a 22-year-old in his first NFL camp to walk into the head coach's office and issue an ultimatum, that's not ego. That's conviction. That's someone who knows their value and who refuses to let it be diminished for the sake of someone else's control. It also speaks volumes about where Sanders' head is at. This isn't a guy throwing a fit. This isn't a diva moment. This is a calculated response to a broken system, a decision rooted in everything but impulse. And now, the Browns are trapped. They can't silence the story. It's already public. They can't walk it back. Shedeur's demand has reshaped the entire preseason narrative, and they definitely can't pretend nothing's wrong. So what do? They can bench him harder, keep him in scout team exile, and pretend it's business as usual. But that risks a full-blown locker room fracture, not to mention the optics disaster of freezing out a player for calling out unfair treatment. They can rush to apologize, try to salvage a relationship with vague promises about reevaluating reps. But after this much damage, that sounds hollow, a Band-Aid on a fractured bone. Or they can lean into it. They can say, you're right. You've earned a shot. Let's go. It would require swallowing pride. It would require Stefanski admitting that maybe he was too rigid, that maybe he put too much stock in seniority and not enough in what the field was showing him. But it could also flip this entire story. Because right now, the Browns look like an organization scared of their own player. But if they pivot, if they step into the fire and say, we're going to let performance lead this team, that sends a message that Cleveland might actually be ready to turn a corner, not just on the depth chart, but culturally. And let's not ignore what this means for the league either. If Shedeur Sanders forces a trade or gets handed the starting job through sheer determination, this moment becomes precedent. It becomes proof that young players can challenge the system if they're backing it up with performance. It rewrites the unwritten rules about hierarchy. It starts to chip away at the idea that rookies have to earn respect through time rather than production. And yes, some people will hate that. They'll say Sanders jumped the line, that he didn't wait his turn. But ask yourself, how much waiting is enough when you've already outperformed everyone ahead of you? Should he have stayed quiet and smiled while the guy in front of him kept misfiring? Should he have waited until week 8 after the Browns stumbled through mediocrity just to be told, now you can come in and clean up the mess? No, he did what leaders do. He stood up and said what no one else wanted to say out loud. You're wasting time, and you're wasting me. So now all eyes are on Cleveland. If they cave and trade him, they're admitting failure. If they keep him and don't use him, they're inviting chaos. If they elevate him, they're admitting they should have done it weeks ago. There is no clean way out of this, but there's a right way. And for the sake of their future, not just a quarterback, but as a credible NFL franchise, Cleveland better figure out fast. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't asking for permission anymore. He's asking for a jersey, one that means something. And whether it's orange and brown or another color altogether, he's going to wear it soon, and he's going to make it matter. Because make no mistake, this is no longer about development. It's no longer about needing more time or a better grasp of playbook or easing a rookie into the NFL. That chapter is closed. Shedeur Sanders isn't playing the role of rookie quarterback anymore. He stepped fully into the spotlight, and not because he begged for it, but because he earned it and no one else in the room could. What we're seeing now is something deeper. This is a clash between two very different eras of football. One, where the traditional hierarchy rules, where veterans get the benefit of the doubt, and the locker room is governed by time served. And another, newer era, where results speak louder than resumes, and young talent doesn't wait to be crowned. It claims the crown itself. And Shedeur? He just walked into the throne room. But instead of welcoming him, the Browns are locking the door from the inside. Why? Because Shedeur's rise exposes something that teams like Cleveland hate being forced to confront: accountability. If they let him shine, then they also have the answer for why they didn't see it sooner. They have the answer for the weeks of practice reps wasted on quarterbacks who couldn't complete 2-minute drills. They have the answer for giving lip service to meritocracy while protecting a status quo that has consistently failed them. And worse, they have to own the fact that their franchise quarterback may have walked into the building without their blessing. Because the uncomfortable truth is, not everyone in the Browns front office wanted Shedeur. Some voices in the war room preferred safer picks. Others thought drafting him came with too much noise, too much flash. A few thought it would be too complicated to separate the player from the pedigree. But Andrew Berry pushed for him anyway, quietly, confidently, and with conviction. He saw a quarterback with elite mental processing who stayed cool in pressure moments. A kid who knew how to lead a locker room without barking, who studied tape like a 10-year vet, who threw timing routes with anticipation. Berry didn't need hype. He saw the foundation. So now that Shedeur's outperforming expectations, it's not just a good pick. It's a referendum on the internal divide. It's one side of the building proving the other side wrong in real time. And that's where the tension lives. This isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's a turf war. Because to elevate Shedeur is to acknowledge a shift in power. And not everyone is ready to hand it over. Some of the older voices in the building still believe that quarterbacks need to pay their dues, that they need to hold clipboards, sit quietly, and soak in the wisdom of older guys before they're handed the huddle. And to be fair, that model has worked before. But that model doesn't account for guys like Shedeur Sanders. Guys who don't need to be handheld through every rep, who don't crumble in red zone drills, who don't throw flutterballs under pressure, who don't shy away from taking command, even when the depth chart says they shouldn't. And here's the most frustrating part. Shedeur's demand for a trade wasn't impulsive. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't born from one bad day. It was methodical, measured, a last resort. He gave the staff time. He gave them silence. He gave them production. And in return, he got excuses. So now, he's taking back control, the only way he can. And if Cleveland isn't careful, they're about to gift wrap a franchise quarterback to a team that will absolutely build around him. Because that's the irony here. Outside Cleveland, there's no confusion. Other teams see what Shedeur is doing and are already moving behind the scenes. Assistant GMs are texting their contacts. Coaches are watching his scrimmage tape in the dark hours after practice. Quarterbacks with less upside are suddenly feeling a little more expendable. This is the NFL. Talent doesn't sit idle for long. And Shedeur Sanders? He's not a hidden gem anymore. He's a lighthouse in the fog. Clear, bright, impossible to ignore. So, where does this go from here? Well, if Cleveland truly want to fix this, They have one shot left. It won't be easy. It means having uncomfortable conversations. It means someone, maybe multiple someones, will have to eat their ego and admit they misjudged the situation. It means giving Shedeur an equal crack at the first team, not because of public pressure, but because it's what's right. It means being honest. Finally, if Stefanski really wants to be a leader, he needs to sit Shedeur down and say, "We got this wrong. Let's get it right." No spin, no platitudes, just a real, open lane to compete. Because anything else is a stall tactic, and Shedeur isn't stalling anymore. And if that's not something the organization can stomach, if the power dynamics are too fragile to allow merit to rise, then they should grant the trade and step out of the way. Let another team take the bet. Let another city rally around the rookie with the maturity of a 10-year vet. Let another locker room embrace a leader who doesn't need to scream to be heard. And when he thrives, and he will thrive, it won't be luck. It'll be the most predictable outcome in football. Talent rising, leadership emerging, and the wrong team learning too late that patience isn't always wisdom. It's sometimes cowardice in disguise. The Browns have seen this movie before. They've watched quarterbacks leave and bloom elsewhere. They've lived through the what-if years. And if they're not careful, they're about to do it again, only this time, they can't say they didn't see it coming. Shedeur Sanders made sure of that. He gave them the practice tape. He gave them the poise. He gave them the numbers. And now he's giving them the truth. If the Browns still want him, they need to prove it. And if they don't, he's ready to walk. Not because he's running from adversity, but because he's running toward opportunity. Because that's what quarterbacks do. Real ones, anyway. And for all the drama and dysfunction, for all the political chess moves behind closed doors, the story remains painfully simple. Shedeur Sanders has outplayed the plan. Now the Browns have to decide, do they have the courage to change it? Or are they about to add another name to the long list of quarterbacks who could have been the future of Cleveland? If only Cleveland had been ready,